Marky Ramone.
How are you, Marky? Thank you
All
so
right.
much, man, for calling. I really appreciate it.
Oh, anytime.
Yeah, it's great to have you coming back to the area. So
Thanks. Yeah, definitely.
So,
good to get out again.
yeah, this is cool that you're coming out. You're telling stories. You're talking about My Life as a Ramone, your book at City Winery in Boston on Monday the 18th. And so will you be reading from the book? Will you just be telling stories, or will you answer
I'm going to be
questions?
telling stories. The stories really are in my book. So, I will have in the background videos, photos.
Oh.
There'll be a Q&A, and hopefully everybody can, ask me a question they want me to answer. But I think the time limit is an hour and a half. So I'm going to just include everything as much as I can.
Well, I got to run. I'd like to do a little fact-checking with you now, if I could, from some Ramones lore. And specifically, I'm always fascinated by you guys working with the legendary producer, Phil Spector.
He's in the story.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
At the End of the Century album. And is it true that he hired a prostitute to sit in the studio just so he could yell at her?
That was in the other room, the waiting room in the studio. Usually when you go to a studio, there's a waiting room. You sit there and, they'll have something brought in, ordered food, drink, whatever. But I didn't see that. I didn't see that at all, and whoever said it was probably there, most likely. So it's, it's warranted. But with the guns and that whole other deal, he carried them, but he never pointed them at us. He had a license, and he had a bodyguard who was an ex-policeman who also had a license to carry. So, all these rumors got overblown, and, there's that old saying, stick to the, don't stick to the facts, stick to the whatever it is, the legend.
Yeah.
So, no, he was maniacal. He did have an ego. I mean, he was Phil Spector, and I understood that. He came from the Bronx. I came from Brooklyn. The other guys came from Queens. So there was kind of like an understanding that, don't push it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So knowing Phil, we always loved his productions, and we wanted to work with him. He wanted to work with us. So it was the meeting of the minds. Did the album come out the way I wanted it to? No, could have been a little different, but one might argue it was the biggest selling album we ever had. So, knowing Phil Spector, we knew that it would sound kind of close to what was eventually recorded. So it was just another way of getting away from just the three chords on the first three albums. That's why we did Road to Ruin differently, because we wanted to get to the next phase. But we always kept our style.
The Ramones, they're one of the bands that are the foundations of punk rock. You were also in another band that really was another foundation. That's Richard Hell and the Voidoids. And it's interesting to me that you, as a musician, like, what drew you to these bands, to this music? Because it definitely wasn't like a pathway to success at that time in the early 70s. What was it that drew you to, say, like Richard Hell, to play with them?
Well, I just came off my band Dust, which was one of the first heavy metal bands in America. So we broke up after 2 years. I was still in high school, naive, and and the producer, guitar player of Dust, went on to produce the first two Kiss albums. I started hanging out in New York City. I found it interesting about the people that were going there, what I read about it. So in 74, 75, when CBGB's opened up, that's where I met all these guys: Richard Hell, Johnny Thunders, Dee Dee Ramone, Joey Ramone, all these luminaries that helped spark the punk scene. So Richard Hell was looking for a drummer, and I told him, hey, I just finished playing with Jane County for 2 years, and I wanted to change, so I started playing with Richard, and we did the Blank Generation album, toured with The Clash, and after that, I was asked to join the Ramones, but Richard Hell was a totally different style.
Yeah.
Dust was a different style, and joining the Ramones was a different style. I also auditioned for the New York Dolls when their first drummer died, along with Jerry Nolan. Jerry got the job. He kind of knew them a lot better than I did. But I was grateful to have played with Jane Wayne County and Richard Hell and the Voidoids and the Ramones. So, who knew that it would, come to this, come to the history books and how influential these bands were. So then, London in '76 picked up on all the punk stuff in New York. So, it just kept going and going.
I have a question about your time in England with the Ramones. So Joe Strummer always told a story that the Clash didn't have money to get into one of your shows, so they knocked on the dressing room window, and you guys actually pulled them through the window and let them hang out.
That was Tommy's last tour. That's when Tommy was there.
Oh, okay.
But when I went back a couple of, 4 or 5 months later to do the tour, to tour England again, with the Ramones, they were all hanging out again. Everyone became kind of an acquaintance. We weren't really that close, but we were aware of the punk bands. But I that probably did happen. But when I toured with the Clash for Richard Hell and the Voidoids, I was 77 too. It was the same time that the Ramones were there, maybe a little earlier. But they great guys. I met Sid Vicious there. I met the other punk luminaries from the punk scene that ignited their scene. So, they all loved the Ramones. They started wearing leather jackets, jeans, no more high heel, the English glam look and all that stuff. And so, we definitely had a big impact on the punk scene there. They were all in the audience when they went there the first time to observe, watch, and see what they could get out of it. So that's what they did.
Were you in the band during what may or may not be true, the time the Sex Pistols came backstage and you guys peed in some beers and gave them to them?
No, that was right after I joined. Dee Dee did all that. Dee Dee was Dee Dee, and then, he was a funny guy, and, that's how it went. So, obviously, it was a prank. We liked to do a lot of pranks. We pranked our own people, our own road crew, our tour manager. We pranked each other. So, we were a bunch of guys who just wanted to have a few laughs,
What were some of the pranks that were maybe pulled on you guys that were memorable?
On us?
Yeah.
Well, we would order a pizza, and the pizza would be upside down in the box.
Oh.
We would walk into a room after the show, and a big plastic thing of water would fall above the door right on us, or whoever walked in first. Things like that. Just sort of any kind of, bunch of guys together having fun, just goofing around.
From the time you entered the music business to now, it has changed like in so many different ways. But what's like the one thing that you think has remained a constant that, musicians who are trying to make a living at it should listen to?
I did my first album when I was going on 18. That's vinyl. And it was different then. We at that point we toured. You have to tour. I mean, that's the thing. You have to get to the people.
Yeah.
The first tours that Dust did was with Alice Cooper, so we had that in. And a lot of it is luck too, and how much you want it. The Ramones, we had a very good lawyer. We had a very good account. We had a great record CEO, Seymour Stein, who was the head of Sire Records. We all had something in common, very important. I think the first thing in a band, knowing my track record and everything, is to be friends with the other guys. Very important. And then knowing what kind of musical genres that you all like, and then putting them together with maybe come up with your own style, which is very important. And like the Ramones, they had their own style. It just came out of nowhere. You could be that one individual or group that could come up with a style. So getting back to bands, friendship is important. And what you really want to do in life, are you going to do 2, 3 things good, or are you going to do one thing great? So to me, that's very important. And how much you're willing to put into your rehearsing, either on your own or with the band, how many times a week, how many hours a day, things like that. We never thought about the money first. We always thought about how good we can make the song, what the song can relate to, the energy, the vibe, the lyrical content. So you have to appeal to different age groups. Like now, when I just did my shows in the 4 countries in South America, they were like kids. They were like from 16 to 24. I'm not calling anyone 24 a kid, but I think you understand what I mean.
Yeah.
So I'm keeping the Ramones' legacy alive by playing the music all over the world. I feel the songs are too good to be played, not to be played, and Johnny, Joey, Dee Dee, Tommy died too young to enjoy the fruits of their labor. I mean, cancer. Who knew? I mean, it's such an insidious disease that it killed me when all 4 of them passed away. First it was Joey, then it was Johnny, then it was Dee Dee. No, it was Joey, Dee Dee, Johnny, then Tommy, and it took quite a long time, which I'm still not over their passing, because I was with them for 15 years.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: if Joey and Johnny and Dee Dee and Tommy were able to come back for one day and could play one song with you, or you could play one song with them again, what song would you want to play with them?
Okay, well, we did a movie called Rock and Roll High School, which still today is played on, different stations all over the world. I would do Rock and Roll High School because of that situation, being in a movie for the first time, seeing what movie making was like, doing the song twice, once really as a demo on the Rock and Roll High School soundtrack, and the one with Phil Spector. So that would be number one. Second, I got to throw this in because it's the first song that I recorded with the Ramones. That was I Want to Be Sedated.
Wow, that was the first song you recorded?
Yeah, that's the first song I recorded in the spring of 1978 at Media Sound, New York City.
That's amazing.
Just luckily Tommy was producing. He gave me his drum set, which I retuned a little differently for my kind of taste. But, I was glad that he was there because he knew the sound, and Ed Stasium was the engineer at the time. So luckily I had Tommy producing that album, and it was, in my opinion, I was Sgt. Pepper.
Yeah. That's where you guys really started to expand a little bit on the sound.
We had to, because first album, second, and third album, Rocket to Russia, basically 3-chord albums, and I loved them. But there were bands coming in, like Van Halen. There were bands like, that had a lot more musical, advancement concerning their instruments. So we had to show that we could, continue playing our style, but integrating the newer stuff that was out there in good taste, not just throwing a song together just to show how fast a guitar player can play or whatever. We just added all that to our basic structure, and that was the result, Road to Ruin.
Well, it turned out awesome, and I prefer that version of Needles and Pins over even Sonny and Cher, any other
Searches,
version.
We always loved that British Invasion. Those bands are great.
Yeah.
I was just hanging out with Peter Noonan, Hermit's on Long Island. He gave me a shot, and in Henry VIII, you go 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hey, oh, let's go. Henry VIII. I mean, it's amazing how this band has reached so many genres of music. Musicians really love the band too, not just punk, metal, rock. All the jazz. There was a jazz album done of the Ramones, elevator music about the Ramones. It just doesn't end, and I'm very grateful for that. I don't question it, and here I am, just waiting to do these shows coming up. It's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of laughs. I'm a ham. I like to make I like to make people laugh. I like to see people having a good time.
One more question, and it's something that I see you mentioned, like the kids. There's a whole new generation all the time rediscovering the Ramones music, and the Ramones are such an iconic band. At the same time, that Ramones logo is very iconic. You recognize it right away. You can't mistake it. It's been used for a lot of different things. But when you see a kid, a teenager wearing a Ramones shirt, do you ever wonder, do they actually know the music, or are they just wearing it for the fashion? And should that matter?
Well, the thing is, if they have the T-shirt, they might say, I'm wearing this T-shirt. Let me check out the music. So they go to the music. If they have the music and they don't have the T-shirt, they might want the T-shirt too. So it works both ways. It creates an interest eventually of, hey, what are these guys all about?
Yeah. Because I'm kind of one of those jerks who's, I see a kid like my daughter. She walked in with a Led Zeppelin T-shirt, and I said, "Where'd you get that?" And she bought it at Forever 21, this girl store.
Yeah, I know.
And I'm like, name 3 songs from Led Zeppelin.
Right.
And then I had to sit her down and school her, which was probably like going to the dentist for her. But, I wonder about that when I see Ramones shirts on these high school kids. I'm like, do you even know who they are? I just want to get up there and start blasting the music in their face. And
well, with social media and everything, with the internet and the whole deal, they can easily find out what the band looks like, sounds like, and there are a lot of curiosity seekers,
Well, Marky Ramone, a pleasure and an honor to talk to you, man.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks
so
a
much
lot.
for taking the time.
I'll see you there.
Monday, the 18th, City Winery in Boston. Get your tickets. Go to citywinery.com. Marky, thanks again, man.
Great.
Really appreciate it.
Thanks. Anytime.